Hey everyone, Papercut here with our live lesson. I wanted to do this one as an example, both to get uh, some examples to show people who are potentially interested in Patreon, but also give an example for the coaching Discord as well. Next week's lesson is going to be on Dark Age rushing, both how to do a Dark Age rush and how to defend against Dark Age rushes. So if you're interested in that's something you want to take part in, check out my Patreon. The link will be in the bottom of the video, and you guys have it here on the coaching Discord. But today we're going to be talking about the Feudal all-in, both what it takes, the steps to it, and then look at a couple replays to look at those mistakes that we often see in Feudal all-ins and how to and basically what we're looking for whenever we're trying to accomplish something like that. So what we're going to cover our overall plan and how that guides our action, how our age up is affected by wanting to do a Feudal all-in, and then give some examples for other strategies you might want to do and how that would affect your age up, how to set up your eco in preparation to execute a good Feudal all-in, where to attack, changes based on the opponent's strategy, how being a knight versus non-knight civ and how playing against a knight versus non-knight civ affects this, and feudal pressure versus feudal all-in and their strengths and weaknesses. If at any point you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat, which I have up. I'm able to see. So if you want to ask a question in the chat, I'll happily pause and answer those. And let's go ahead and hop right in. So how do we set a plan? And honestly, I could say, why do we set a plan? We need a plan because we need a general plan in how we're going to win. Oftentimes when I'm watching people's replays, the thing I notice the most is people not setting up their resources well, not setting up what their villagers, and that often comes from because people don't know what they're actually trying to accomplish. They don't have a set plan in place, so they don't know what they want, so they kind of gather a little bit of everything. Like, it's obvious whenever people are floating a little bit of every resource. How to fix that often comes from making sure that you know what you want to do and why and what you're trying to accomplish. So if your plan is to feudal all in, you need a lot of wood at first to make production buildings. So you're going to gather, you have a lot of those on wood. And then once the production buildings get down, you need to make those units. Then you're going to move some villas onto food. And that's a lot more efficient and that's a lot faster because you know, I need production buildings. Now I'm making units. Now I'll go back to wood so I can add more production buildings, on and on and on. And so that's why it's going to have a plan at the forefront. Now, I hear a lot of times people go, I'm really bad at adjusting my plan, or I don't know when to keep my plan or change it. It's actually, I'd say, very rare that you would completely change your plan, i.e., okay, I'm going to fast castle. Ooh, actually, I'm going to feudal all in. There are some cases where you would do that sort of very heavy, complete change, but it is very common, no matter what plan you do, is to have some sort of adjustment. And of course, there's going to be a period where the plan can only go for so long during the game, and you'll need to go to the next step. But the adjustment should often be, I want to do this thing, so I want to feudal all in. Oh, I see they're trying to fast castle. There's a tower on the goal. They're not making units. How do I adjust my plan to be more effective now that I've seen my opponent's reaction? So we'll talk about those adjustments later on. Why do feudal all in? Well, a feudal all in my opinion, is the most efficient plan to have when you first start learning the game, even when you're just trying to learn a new civ. So if you're even proficient in the game, but then you are trying to get better at different civ, just doing a feudal all in, because one, it teaches you the basics about the civ. You will always play a game in feudal, so it's something you can practice every single time. And lastly, for just the base level skills of the game, eco management, smart use of your units, trying to execute a plan, all those things happen in a feudal all in, and then you can use those base skills to then do other styles of play better. So overall goal of a feudal all in. First, we're going to be cutting off resources. I think a lot of people view a feudal all in as trying to drop a ram as fast as possible. It's actually not the case. A feudal all in is often characterized by what I would call tightening the noose. You're trying to cut off resources and slowly work your opponent down to an eco disadvantage while you're on the map gaining an eco advantage and fueling more units. Once you have cut off resources and you force the opponent to stay within TC, I think kind of your goal should always be kind of keep them in their TC area. Then you have an option. You either finish them off with a ram drop push, or you're going to force an overreaction in which they keep on making units, you back up, go castle, get upgrades, and then finish them with a castle army. So our age ups. When we look at our age up options, I think a lot of the times, I like doing this game when I'm coaching people where I go, okay, here's your resources. What does that say about your what you're trying to accomplish? And often I could say, if I saw your villager split right now, I would say you're trying to do this. And then you go, well, I wasn't trying to do that at all. It's almost good to take these snapshots at times and go, okay, what does it look like I'm trying to do? What am I actually doing? So in this case, I took the snapshot of an hybrid player during their feudal age up. You to look at that, I would say they are definitely not 2TC, right? They'd be on stone. The question is, are they feudal lending or are they doing feudal aggression? I would generally say this is fast castle. And the reason being is they have 6 on food still, 3 on gold still, and only 5 on wood. Generally, if you want a feudal fight, you actually only have like 3 or 4 on food to maintain villager production, and you have a lot heavier on wood to get that production buildings as you enter feudal. So this would be someone who's actually trying to go castle, because the villagers on wood are just to get another house, a tower, and then the rushing castle, which is exactly what this Ayud player did. And this is what I would suggest. If someone's rushing castle, they generally need 5 to 6 vills on food during that 8 on wood. On that age up, to ensure they actually have the tower and the house, and maybe even a production building, so they can then get to castle. So, for example, if you wanted to TC during your age up, you'd want to have a lot of vills on stone and wood. Maybe you only age up with like 3 vills, 3 to 2 vills, because you're trying to get to feudal quickly isn't the big deal. You're trying to get your TC as fast as possible. So we'd want to see a lot more vills on stone and wood, usually more wood than stone. If you want a fast castle, you generally see villagers stay on gold, a good amount of vills on food, and enough vills on wood, 5 to 6, to get a tower, house, and maybe a production building, depending on how you're trying to get to castle. Going feudal pressure or feudal all-in generally means a lot of vills on wood as you're aging up, with only minimal on food. If you're for gold vills, you could either leave 3 on there, and that means you're rushing age ups. I'm not rushing. You're rushing your upgrades, but that generally means you are then not emphasizing units as quickly as possible. If you want to pull your vills off of gold as you're aging up, that's fine. That actually means you can put more on wood and food, and that means you're getting out units sooner. And then you can put vills on gold later and start getting your upgrades. So it depends if you want your upgrades or you're trying to get as units as soon as possible, which both have their advantages and disadvantages. If you could leave like 1 or 2 on gold, which would allow you to trickle upgrades without hurting your eco in the unit producing department. And this is especially important early as well, because you have so few vills early in the game. So where you split them is even more important than later in the game, when you have like 60 or more vills, and the splits still matter, but much less. What do we need and how do we get to it? So we need units, so we can immediately pressure the opponent. How do we get that as production? So we need a lot of vills on wood during the age up to get the production buildings to make the units. And then we need to ask ourselves, what advantages can we create? If we're going to be doing a 1TC food all-in, it means that we have to create our advantages in much smaller ways. So one example is military upgrades. Getting your military upgrades early gives you these really big advantages in small unit fights. Having aero defense means your units are taking a lot more shots from enemy archers. So that's why aero defense is often a really big one. Same with aero attack. If you get aero attack quickly, then your archers are doing much more than your opponent's archers and doing a lot more damage to their units that don't have aero defense. Getting your eco upgrades early can be a really big deal, especially if your opponent is investing like a 2TC or something. So your villagers will be more efficient, which helps a lot. Another big eco advantage you can give yourself is if you're attacking your opponent and keeping them in their base. You getting on food on the map is a huge way to boost your eco and allow you to produce a lot more units, even if you have less vills, because you're taking a lot better food. So you want to use that feudal pressure to still create advantages for yourself, usually eco advantages with food on the map, or trying to invest quickly into military advantages to keep that map advantage. How do we set up our eco for a feudal all-in? So we've aged up, we've got our production buildings. How do we need to split our eco? I think it's important we talk about eco first, purely because eco defines your ability to play this game. A strong eco means a lot of unit production. It means you're generally doing better than a poor eco and poor unit production. So generally you want to make whatever your civs power unit in feudal is plus archers. If you don't have a unique unit in feudal, then generally you're just making horseman archer if you're playing against non-knight civs, or spearman archer if you're playing against knight civs. If you're knight civ, which we'll talk more about soon, you of course would do knight archer then. Feudal archer mass. Why is that a big deal? Well, generally, if you watch top level gameplay, it's often who can get the biggest archer mass, because horsemen are nice, spearmen are nice, even if you have feudal men at arms, that's nice, but truly it's who gets the feudal mass or archers first tends to define the game. One, with their low damage, once you get a mass of like 20 or more, they'll start to kill anything because there's so many of them. 2, their kiting ability, even against horsemen, they can just keep kiting, running away, and melee units will just struggle to keep up. And last, if you go castle with a big feudal archer mass, the amount of DPS increase they get through upgrades is massive. So taking a feudal archer mass and turning and then upgrading it to castle and then giving it +1 range damage vastly increases their DPS than almost any other feudal unit getting into their castle variation. It's a massive jump. And often, like taking a feudal archer mass, upgrading to castle can then lead to a really nice timing push where you push in and win with just a strong castle archer ball. So generally during your age up, you want to be quick onto wood, get your production down, then the resource you need to make units. So you generally don't want to open archer. I would highly suggest you open horsemen if you're a non-knight civ, or knights if you're a knight civ, and use that to apply pressure. The goal of that pressure is not to kill villagers per se, but it's to tag exposed resources. So you want to be there so your opponent can't go on to deer. Your opponents can't be super greedy with their rushes, or maybe they're trying to put a really greedy second TC down. You're making a cav unit early because that can cross the map quickly and tag. The only time where I would say you're not opening cav is units that have a particularly good special feudal units. For example, if you're doing like a feudal all-in by English and you're doing the council hall, well, yeah, you're gonna make longbows first. But then again, I've seen plenty of English players open King's Palace. That's not right. It's not called King's Palace. It's called, what's the name of it? The one that produces the king, the knight. And that first king provides a lot of pressure that then follow up with longbows. So horsemen just allow you to put pressure, allow you to tag resources, prevent greed from your opponent, and if they're not ready for it, can force a reaction. So you know they're probably going to make spears, which means you're going to make archers. Or if they match with their own horsemen, then you can just try to outproduce them in horsemen, and maybe if you want to even make your own spears, just to defend. So on a feudal all-in, where do we attack? What are the areas we're looking for? Generally, we have our resources being denied. So gold prevents age up. Stopping food prevents everything. But I think you're not going to stop food permanently at first, right? They're going to have sheep, maybe like a really close berry pack or something like that. Your goal is to prevent good food. Don't let them go out on, if they're a berry civ, don't let them take their berries. If they're a non-berry civ, don't let them get the deer and boar. Because preventing them from getting the good food means that if you then take that good food, you have way more resources than them. And lastly, if you can stop wood, that just stops them being able to produce more productions. Like I've lost games fast castling where I got to castle, but since my wood was denied, I couldn't build houses, I couldn't build production, I just died. So if you can deny any of the big three resources, you'll probably win. So a lot of times people are like, well, I gotta attack this resource. Sure, in some specific matchups, it's nice to deny a certain resource, like berries for Byzantine or gold for French. But my general advice is whatever is the forward resource first, that's where you're going to attack first. And then you work your way around from there. So deny what you can at first, and then tighten the noose. So the danger of trying to get too aggressive with your starting units, you get like 4 units and you're denying the front resource, and you're like, great, I'm going to rotate around the back. While you're rotating around the back of their base, they can produce 5 units and then kill that little army. So you want to stop yourself from being too good in initial attack. Deny what you can, build your mass, and then start denying everything around the back of the base, pressuring the sides, things like that. Feudal, and we'll talk about this in a second, but feudal all-ins often fail when people are almost way too aggressive with their starting units. How does the feudal knight affect this feudal all-in we're trying to accomplish here? Well, if you have them, of course, you want to build knights. Knight mass is key. Do not throw away knights. I see oftentimes people, because they've watched top-level players, they've been told, you got to snipe vills, right? Sniping vills is the most important thing you do with your knights. No, it's not. Building your knight mass is actually the most important thing, because knights scale better than any other unit. When we talk about scaling, we're talking about the more you added them, the better it gets. So we talked about earlier how building an archer mass in feudal is really powerful, because their upgradability in a castle makes them a lot better. Every time you upgrade their damage is a huge DPS scaling for them. Knights also scale amazingly well. So if you can keep them alive and keep pressuring, that's much stronger than killing a villa here and there. Like I've seen people, excuse me, dive under TC to try to kill one villain, they lose their knight. That's not worth it. Like it's actually much more important to pressure and be there as a presence and prevent them from leaving their base. That's actually much more powerful. So the threat of these knights is really important. Second, while building your knight mass is key, it's actually more important to build archer mass. So you're actually using your knights to force them into a lot of archers, which you then punish by building. You're making a lot of knights to force them into spears, and that you punish with a large archer mass. The first time I did this lesson for my Patreon group, one of the people watching was a French player, and they said, I often struggle when they make a lot of spears. It's because he was leaning too heavy into knights. And he was hesitant to make archers. It's like, no, actually the knight is to enable the archer. I see oftentimes French players, and I play this way too when I play French. You make knights, and then you drop like 2 archery ranges, and you pump as many archers as possible. Now you don't send them across the map. You wait till you have like 8 or 9, and then you walk them across the map. Because once you have 8 or 9 archers, they're sniping spears really fast, and then you can do these fights where you force the spears to chase your knights, and then your archers are killing spears as they're trying to run away. So that's why that pairing is very good, but I think people often fail in the pairing when they send like 1 or 2 archers across. When in reality, you should wait till you have a nice like 8 or 9 mass. If you both have knights, it just becomes a night off. You're just trying to see who can make the most knights and raid each other off of resources. And it's like who runs out of resources first or gets their gold the night first. I think sometimes when people do knight versus knight, they feel like, oh, if I make spears, I'll get an advantage. You need a lot of spears for that to really tilt the balance of the fight. And so if you dropping a barracks and making spears slows your knight production, your opponent will actually just scale more knights than you and defeat the spears anyway. So I would suggest don't go spears unless you feel like you're losing the knight fight and it's like a desperation, I just need to defend my base sort of thing. If you're playing against knights and you don't have knights, you can still do feudal all in against knight civs. The thing is you have to go really heavy spears early. Like I'm talking like barracks, maybe even 2 barracks immediately and just producing spears constantly. Forcing the archers, add horsemen, and then really get into horsemen. If you can deny gold early, you've got a real huge gang up on the lead. The big thing about fighting a knight civ in feudal is do not let them get deer and boar. If you deny deer and boar, their lives get so much harder. A lot of you just joined in, which I really appreciate. If you want to ask questions at any point, please type that up in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them as I'm going. We're just talking about the steps to a feudal all-in. So common mistakes we see when someone is doing a feudal all-in. First, and I would put these 3 at the top together. So lack of scouting, sending units too soon, not sending units fast enough. The scouting is everything on a feudal all-in. You need to see what they're opening with. You need to see what they're making, how that affects your initial push. So generally, a feudal all-in often fails if, 1, you don't send units fast enough. So you drop your first production building, or you're a civ that has a production building as a feudal landmark, and you're just rallying next to your base. You might have missed your chance to cross and deny a really good second TC, to cross and deny the tower on the gold. And like you'd be surprised if your opponent's not making units, 2 archers can completely flip the game. If you get there as they're trying to drop a tower and all of a sudden they can't because their villagers getting shot at. Or then now they can't drop that second TC on a tier pack and they have to put it right next to their original TC so they're not getting anything from it. So you want to be scouting near their base as you're aging up. Even if you haven't scouted the whole map, you need to be at their base as you're aging up so you can see what they're aging up with and if they're being greedy or not. If they are making units, then you first want to open with is the counter unit. And that means you're sending, and if you don't, you're sending units across too soon. Like I watch English players playing against French or any civ really, and they just send their longbows across without checking. And all of a sudden horsemen are killing their first 4 longbows. So we want to avoid being there too soon. If your opponent opens horsemen and you open horsemen, or if your opponent opens horsemen, that doesn't mean you should just make spears immediately. It's often okay to actually open horsemen with your opponent's horsemen. You're both kind of poking each other's and tagging each other's villagers, and then add in spears or archers, depending on what your opponent does. Second is not checking other resources. We will see players completely deny half the map and leave the other back half open. Great. Well, your opponent's just going to move all their villas to the other resources, and it's like you haven't denied anything. So now what you should never do is split your army in half. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm denying this half. I'm just going to split off half and go to the other half. No. Now you're allowing your opponent's smaller army to take much better fights. Instead, what you want to do is send 1 or 2 units to each resource around their base. And then when they move out to that resource, just rotate your whole army around and keep denying. Never, ever split your army in half. Not take advantage of map eco. So you've pushed your opponent into their base. They're stuck in their base. You need to use that to create an advantage. So a big thing is going on deer, going on boar as soon as you can. If you can take boar, if you can take deer early, that's going to give you a massive food boost, which can equal units, but can also mean you can move your villagers off of other food and put them on gold or put them on wood and produce other units or get more production down or finally get that blacksmith down or finally move those onto gold and get upgrades, things like that. But you have to take advantage of the map food. It's vital to a good feudal all-in. Another common mistake I see is people dropping a ram and diving too soon. The only reason you should drop a ram under the 10-minute mark is if they're going castle and they drop the tower on their gold and now you're trying to push. It's not worth it. It's really, really not. Instead, it's much more worth it to try to just deny resources. Deny, make their eco worse. And once you have a good mass of units that can actually defend a ram, that can actually take a fight near TC. One, I see people taking fights near TC when they don't have air defense. That will destroy your army unless you're a knight civ, and even then your knights will take a lot of damage. Instead, you actually want to be building your feudal mass. And then once you have a strong mass, 8 to 10 archers, good front line, then you can drop a ram and push. I see this a lot as well when people see a second TC, like, I gotta drop a ram as fast as possible and push the second TC. Not the case. A second TC doesn't quite pay off to like the 11 or 12 minute mark. A big thing is once that second TC, if they've run out of sheep, the food will get really bad really fast. You actually don't need to push that TC that fast. It's actually better just to keep building. As I said, I'm going to kind of repeat myself here, but just deny outside resources, keep building a mass, and then you want to be dropping that ram and pushing at like 10, 11 minute mark. So Tess asks, sorry, you say sending 2 archers across the map to deny the tower on goal can make the difference, but didn't you say earlier not to send them across the map until you had a mass of 8 or 9 of them? Where do I misunderstand? Really good question. So the context was between just a general game plan, and the 8 to 9 archers was for if you're a knight civ. So if you're a knight civ and you always open knights, of course you're going to send a knight across the map and deny something they're being greedy. But if you're non-knights, in that case, you're actually building the archer mass at home so that when they finally have made spearmen, then you cross the archers across, and now you're killing spearmen really easily. The point of the crossing quickly with a few units is if you're a non-knight civ and you're scouting and you've opened up units and you see, oh my gosh, they're trying to build a TC really, or they're gathering stone for a TC, or they're trying to drop a tower. It has to be an archer, keep in mind. It could be any horseman, archer, spearman, but you want to send them immediately so you can try to prevent them from being greedy and force them into a worse decision. So I think it was the context more than anything. So not adjusting comp. Oftentimes people will be making a unit, they've taken map control, and then their opponent will adjust their comp, and you don't do the same. So make sure you keep popping your scout in, pop a unit in, do something where you can see what are they making, so that you're then adjusting yourself. You don't want to lose the advantage because you get hard countered and you never make your own counter. And we're actually going to see that in one of my video examples here in a second. Lastly, taking a bad fight, the production versus defender's advantage. So if you open up with a feudal inn and you start making units and your opponent is doing something else, they're getting eco upgrades, they're dropping towers, they're getting a second TC, they're going to be behind in production. So you're making units first. Now they have what's called the defender's advantage. When they make a unit, it's there to fight immediately. Your units have to cross the map. But you have the production advantage. You started producing first. As long as you keep producing, you will outmass them. To catch up, they have to drop multiple production buildings and make out of them consistently to catch up to your unit mass. So when you're feudal lending, you're playing this delicate balance of you have this bigger army. If it dies, you probably won't take that advantage again. So you have to be really careful. So it is always okay to back up. If you see them trying to do something and there's a little bit more units, or they've changed their comp and you haven't changed, it's okay to back up, wait a second, adjust your comp, get your reinforcements up to the fight, and then push in. Don't ever force a fight. Often these feudal ends can be defined by the first fight, which will then which if you lose that fight, puts you on the back foot, and now you're trying to adjust and catch back up. Any other questions about the mistakes of a feudal all-in? If you do, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll answer them going to the next slide. So common adjustments we see when doing a feudal all-in. First, if you read Fast Castle, you should just research ram tech as fast as possible and drop the ram. And I mean Fast Castle, i.e. they are not making units at all. They're trying to just get to castle. In that case, you can push a tower with like 4 spearmen and 3 archers. Like you can push their towers with a lot fewer units because there's nothing there to defend it. Your other option is just make a lot of units and burn the tower as they age up. So for example, if you are a knight civ and you're making knights and they just drop 2 towers and they're trying to age up with just towers, the second they start aging up or they hit the castle age up, just dive in with your knights and destroy their towers. They have by that point, if you have 10 or 12 knights, towers won't kill those knights. You just win that. So it's okay to also, if you don't want to do the whole drop up blacksmith, research ram tech, build a ram, just keep making units and then dive when they hit age up. A big thing is if they're going to fast castle with absolutely no military production, they can only fit 15 villagers in their main TC anyway. So if they have like 25 vills on age up to castle, that's 10 vills that have nowhere to hide. So even diving and killing a bunch of their vills is a big deal too. So you don't have to drop the ram, keep in mind. Another thing you do is if they tower their gold, but it's like a forward gold or a pretty exposed side gold, you can just tower the opposite side of the gold and defend it with units and then get the tower upgrade. And bada bing, bada boom, that tower shoots them off their gold. Remember, upgrading a tower of arrow slits increases its range. So when you're dropping the tower, try to have the circle be on somewhat near the gold, and then when you get arrow slits, it'll cover the whole gold. Lastly, don't forget to tag other golds. So as you're pressuring their original gold, always send units to the gold on the opposite side of the base. So if they try to run villagers out, you catch them and deny it. If you read second TC, you have plenty of time to push that. 12-minute mark roughly is when you want to be attacking. That's when that starts to pay off, and now they're gaining extra resources. Deny resources, get upgrades, take the map, food, and once you have a mass push. It's always great if you push the second TC, but if the second TC is like in the back, then just didn't push forward. Or a big thing is trying to push production. If you can destroy production with rams, you actually take a huge advantage. Another thing you can kill a lot of times with rams, houses. If you house them really badly, they can't make anything. If you read them also fighting feudal, don't get too aggro. Keep infantry at home, but you still want to make your presence felt. So open horsemen, pressure their vills with horsemen. Don't try to dive vills or anything. Just push them off stuff. Be smart about securing your resources. If they're doing units as well, it's probably a good idea to always secure map food with towers. So 5 vills per tower. Get good walls up, things like that. The first fight of both of you going feudal often defines that game. As always, scouting is everything. Scouting should be one of the highest priority things you do, up there with vills and consistent unit production. Feudal pressure versus feudal all-in. So we were talking about a feudal all-in. What's funny is a feudal all-in is actually very rare at the highest level. You rarely see people fighting and finishing the game in feudal. What you often, because it's actually very hard at an upper level to kill someone in feudal. There's a lot of defensive things it can do. Now at like high conk and below, you can win a game feudal all-in. No problems. But I want to explain the difference and why people do it. A feudal pressure, your goal is to make units to force an overreaction from your opponent. So you make like 5 horsemen, and they're like, crap. They make 10 spears, they're dropping towers, they're making their own horsemen, and then boom, you hit castle. And what you've done is you've made them way overinvest into units that can't actually push back. And then once they try to dive you, you're making castle units, men-at-arms, knights, and then you roll back over them and you win. So that's what's really common at the upper level, is seeing how much can you force your opponent to overspend, but still get a good castle time and not die, and then now you have that castle advantage. Getting relics, making castle units, things like that. Question in the chat from JM. What does tag or their goal mean? I mean, send a unit to stand by that gold. So that if villagers run out, they get tagged by your unit, that gets an alert for the opponent, and they probably run away. And that also alerts you that they're trying to go out to a different gold, and you can rotate your army around to stop that. Yeah. And then the feudal all-in is you're spending to zero. You're spending everything you can. You're adding more production. You're making more units. You're doing whatever you can to just win. Even if they go castle, you're still making units. Don't worry. I've won plenty of games being in feudal. My opponent hits castle, and I just keep attacking. And you're spending to zero, and you're just, if it doesn't work, you're dead. So that's kind of the difference between the two. All right, so let's check some replays. I have 2 replays I'm going to show you. Both are examples of feudal all-ins not working. One is from one of our Discord members, Trajan, who is a gold English player, and then one is a game I played where I went 2 TC and my opponent tried to all-in me and didn't work, and we can look at why it didn't work for them. So I'm going to switch all my stuff over to the game here. So I'm going to end this stream. All right, so we're going to skip through the start here. I know some people always have questions about scouting. I would not necessarily agree with Trajan's scouting route. There are some map-specific scouting routes, but generally on scouting, I like to go to the middle, cut over, come back around, drop off, come back around over, and scout. Especially on a feudal all-in. I mean, I could say this for almost any type of strategy you do. You want to be at your opponent's base when they age up, so you know what they're opening with. Trajan's doing it very much just clearing his whole side deal. He did drop off his initial sheep, which is... Oh, no, he hasn't yet, but he needs to soon. So what do we notice some positives about his feudal opening? First, he's committing to as many units as possible early. He pulls completely off the gold. He's not worried about upgrades right now. Instead, he's focusing on getting up the council hall, which he could age us up with 3. Wouldn't be that big of a deal. But he's going super heavy on wood, which is going to be really important for English, because not only do you need to make longbows, which are a wood-heavy unit, he needs to make spearmen, which are a food-heavy unit. He needs to drop a barracks, because he's planning against a knight civ, and he wants to add farms potentially. So if you are an English all-in enjoyer, it is totally okay to take the deer. You don't have to make farms. You can take the deer. It's cheaper, because you just have to drop a mill. But I understand wanting the safety of the farms by the TC. I get that too. So Bada bing, bada boom. We're about to hit that age up. Here comes the council hall. Here comes the barracks. Boom. So first mistake he's going to make is we're playing against French. The guy's going to make knights. You need 2 spears per knight, basically. So we probably want a 2 spear per longbow split early on. And he shouldn't cross the map until he has at least 2 spears. He also needs his scout forward so that he can see the opponent's army. Instead, the scout gets parked right here. Where in reality, the scout needs to be leading the charge right now to see the opponent's opening. Trajan gets out his spear, 2 longbows, and he's crossing. Now, if this was Abbasid, if this was Byzantine, if this was almost any other civ, totally fine, even if he hadn't scouted hypothetically. Because those are civs that have horsemen, or they're trying to usually boom or do something where a few units early can make the difference and they don't have anything to counter it. But this is French. So he really needs to be here because right now the French player, while delayed on making their first knight, does have their first knight coming out, which 1 knight can kill 2 longbows and a spear. Now that knight would definitely lose to 2 spears and a longbow. But that's the pickle we're in here. At the home front, he did open a little heavy on food than I would have potentially agreed with, but he's now adjusting back to wood, forgetting to make villagers. That's an issue we all face. Always make sure you're making villagers part of your macro cycle, but he is investing in farms early. Crossing, opponent does scout this, and what I'm going to say about his opponent is that his opponent does use their scout a lot to check what Trajan's making and check his location, so that's really good on him. So we're going to get up to this middle position here. Once again, another big reason why you want your scout with your military, especially as English, but even as other civs, your range units can shoot farther than their vision. So longbows can shoot farther than their vision. The scout allows them to maximize their range. So I would actually have the scout with his army, and if he's worried about his opponent taking boar or taking gold or something like that, he should actually just send like a spearman or a longbow over here. So he's alerted when his opponent tries to go to the opposite side of the base. Don't send the scout. Send just 1 military unit. So we get to the front here. His opponent notices, and then he comes in with 2 knights. Not great. Once again, we have 3 longbows and a spearman here. So this is going to die. Now, Trajan does try to run away, but he is playing knights, but he is kill a knight, which is a really big kill for Trajan. Like, honestly, a good switch, a good trade-off. But that didn't have to happen. If he had the right amount of spearmen, that would have been a very easy defense for him. Sorry, give me 1 second. Cool. So, but this does kill his initial push. And now he has to back up. Now, shouts to Trajan. He doesn't give up. He's going to keep making units here, and he actually is going to put himself in a good position. Back at home, his resources are pretty equally split. This would be a great time for him to add another barracks. What's he seeing from his opponent? Just knights. So he doesn't need to make anything else, but he needs more spearmen on the field. So a second barracks would do him really well. This is also when he could start maybe rallying 1 or 2 villas to gold, so he can start getting upgrades. But really, he just needs to get his mass back up. He does adjust by adding a second barracks. So great call from him. Now he's making more spears, and now his spear count's looking a lot more healthy. Once again, he's going to want like 2 spears per longbow should be his goal right now. So we're going to speed back up again to the next initiation point. He does need to fix his rallies too, but we've all made that mistake. He says his opponent is going on stone, but it's just 1 vil, so that's probably just for tower. And now this is a really healthy mass from him. Trajan's running 15 military now. His opponent is only on 3, so he's made 1 more knight. But his opponent's floating on a lot of resources. So at a lot of levels, even at Conqueror level, people who just spend their resources will often get ahead. Trajan took a really bad fight. He was behind. He continuously made units. Now he's ahead again. Really, really big from him. So now he's going to re-push. He's not going to play scared. Get back across the map. Gets back up here. And goes right beelines for the gold. This is great. And I think what he does here is actually smart. I think a lot of people have been like, oop, tower, I need to wait for a ram. Well, 1, he actually could just sit here and shoot the vills off gold. This tower actually doesn't guard anything, so he could just be here. But 2, He has 10 spearmen. 10 spearmen can burn a tower pretty easily. So he just goes in and burns the tower. And honestly, more power to him. Works, burns the tower down, push the villas away. Once again, opponent only has knights, so knights can't really do anything. Knights have to run away. And now Trajan is free to just sit here. Opponent drops the second tower, but Trajan's denied the gold. This is a great position. Without gold, French can't make knights. Unless they drop a market and sell a bunch of resources, but that gets bad for them pretty fast. His only other option is, these golds over here. So the next thing Trajan should have immediately done is send a spearman over here so that he knows the second that his opponent goes over to the other gold, he rotates around. But Trajan's in a great spot. He's denied gold. He's denied deer. Opponent is not on boar because you can see it through the fog of war. And now he can just sit here, and that's just a lot of damage inherently. He's also forcing his opponent to drop what is a really bad tower. This tower doesn't protect anything. In fact, Trajan could sit here and just burn these houses down and pop cap his opponent, who's currently on 50. So burning these two houses pop caps him pretty easily, and he'll be forced to spend. Now his opponent is floating a lot of resources. What Trajan's done, and what a goal to feud all in here is, it puts him in a bind. If he ages up, he's about to run out of sheep. He will have no food to make units if he ages up. If he respends, he's already really behind and on one production building. So this feudal all in has caught his opponent in a really, really bad spot. This is where Trajan gets a tad greedy. All he really needs to... There's a lot of power in just waiting and sitting. So he's sitting here. He's denying the gold still. He could burn these houses down. But right now what he needs to do is recommit to his eco remass. So this would be a great time for him to get back home. He has a lot of wood, so you could grab 7 villas off wood, drop another row of farms, add another barracks, another archery range, get that production up, and then keep just massing. He needs to get the more units down there. Dropping a tower here would be really big for the attack speed. And then he could think about getting a blacksmith and getting ram tech, or at least arrow defense would be really big. Once he masses up again, he can rotate back around and check the other side. So this would be a good chance for him to just come back down, rotate back around, check the opposite side, or at least have something over here scouting this gold. So he's going to get here, and then he makes the fatal mistake of he stops massing. So he's adding a bunch of farms, but he just stops making military. And partly because he probably just forgot. There's a lot going on. But he gets a tad greedy, and he's like, I want to, his opponent is going to the gold, so that makes sense. But you should almost never, ever rotate around the back side of your opponent's base. Only when you have a dominating lead should you do that. And he does, inherently, right now. But his opponent has no food. This is just on 3 knights. So all he needs to do is be patient, keep making units. My wife's giving me a thumbs up right now. Boom, knights come in. Denies him off food here, denies the tower, which is really good, but loses sight of the spears. Spears come in. But even if he just sits here, this is a lot of damage. And he has more units coming in, so it's always a really good idea to get your units together. But just sitting here denying these berries, I mean, if his opponent's on berries, he's probably in a bad spot. But instead, he keeps... and he comes back. Shoots him off. But instead of actually getting the units together, he needed to combine these armies and rotate around. He keeps moving, and he's going to lose these 5 units to 4 knights for free. This unit's still all by themselves. If you're in this position where your army's stuck or on the backside of your opponent's base, this is where things get bad really fast. So what he needed to do is immediately just rotate back around. His next group of units should come meet him on the right side here, and he tries to rejoin his armies. But honestly, the larger issue is that he just stopped producing units. But this is a big reason why we don't split our military, is that even if he was still producing to this point, his opponent can now just make a group of knights and kill this back group without issue. So once again, a bigger thing we're going to do is just going to keep sending units to the back, cutting off these 2 big resources. Once he masses up or gets a tower down, then rotates around and denies the other gold. Or he could have rotated back around the front, remassed, and then attacked the opposite side. He could have killed all this production. He could have pushed him off this gold. And by the time he pushed him off this gold, he'll probably have a big enough army just to drop a ram and push in and win the game. But once again, you don't really want to push until you can get blacksmith down and get arrow defense. Arrow attack would have also been a really big deal against the knights as well. At this point, Trajan is going to just let his opponent kind of remass here. Once his opponent gets a critical mass of knights, he's going to dive. He's going to come in. This tower is completely upgraded, and the knight's going to come in and wipe this. Now he is going to take some knights down with him, 2 to be exact, which is really nice. Once again, he split again. So he has a group over here. He has a group over here. And he's not really able to now do a kill shot. He's now at 19 military. His opponent's at 9. But he's gotten farms down. He's still not in a great spot. But Trajan's done the same thing his opponent did earlier, where now he's trying to go castle, which if he really rushed castle, this could work. Like he could go castle into knights. But instead he's going to sit here and kind of make units, but not really. So a switch here would have been great, but honestly going castle here just gave his opponent space. His opponent's going to get back on food. He's going to get a lot of gold. He's going to go castle himself and then be fine. So Trajan really had a chance here to really end this French player's ability to really do much. But over-rotating, not remassing, not continuing to produce units, put him in a bad spot there. Ooh, I missed a question, my bad. Cool, yeah, I'm recording this right now, so you can catch the rest of it tomorrow when I post it. Cool, quick second game here. I got 14 more minutes, so I got to go to a coaching session here. So next I want to show you is a failed feudal all-in against 2TC. It's actually a game I played. Not to toot my own horn, right? But it was a great example of someone trying to feud all in and not... I think the biggest example of this one is not making comp adjustments. Not making comp adjustments, which against OTD is really, really important. Just a general tip against OTD, you have to make your counters. Have to make your counters. So I'm going to do one of my favorite builds in the world, which is 2TC OTD. I don't know what it is, man. I freaking love it. Big fan. We're going to, since we're a long time, we're going to speed really quick through the beginning part of it. I'm just kind of narrate what's happening. We really want to get to the meat of his push. So the issue with pushing hill and dale is that if your opponent is able to, completely take their own hill, that's a deer pack, a berry pack, a lot of wood and gold they get, which is really, really good for them. We're going to watch this from our opponent's point of view here. I know Japanese likes to rush, so I immediately cross and check his base, and bada bing, bada boom, I saw a barracks. So I decide to just tower my gold, and since my gold is protected, I can wall the backside, wall over here, and he can't push my gold. If my gold was more exposed, I would have just rushed villas out and gathered the gold I needed to age up. He makes 2 spears, comes out here. Can't harass the gold, so he just be's annoying for a little bit, but it's whatever. And then he's going to age up like normal. Now he's just scouting for spears here. My vills weren't by the TC, so I missed a chance to snipe his vills, but I'm just walling up because I want to go 2TC out of this. He ages up. He's not aging up super quick. He's okay with kind of delaying it here to try to get more vills on food and wood. He has a lot of gold. I age up, he age up. He reads the 2TC, so this is when he decides to truly commit to a feudal in because he knows I'm 2TCing. His main goal here, as we talked about, since I had to drop a TC pretty safe, his thing is that he cannot let me get the deer and the boar out here. I should not in any way get outside golds. The one nice thing about Hill and Dale is that you can truly deny the things away from the hill pretty easily. You have to survive through the hill though. So, this is a lot of food that I have, especially the opening deer pack is pretty big, but that means he also can take the boar, he can take his own deer in this deer pack, and use that to really power a push. So I could go castle here, but my fear as 2TC OTD is if I castle, he'll just push and kill me. I am scouting, I see he's making Yumi and more spears. So I know, okay, he's definitely trying to push. And right now, Yumi push for Japan is really in right now. So we look at the timer. He's at almost the 9-minute mark. If you look from my perspective, I'm nowhere near castle. Like I can't. Since I know he's making Yumi and archers, I make pure archers myself. So once he sees archers, he should have made an immediate comp switch. Yes, he can make a lot of Yumi, but my OTD archers will dominate his Yumi and will dominate his archers. So he needed to either go into mass horsemen or a switch into lots and lots of samurai would have been really good here. Because my archers would struggle against samurai in mass. But instead, he's going to hard commit to just keep making Yumi. You can see his split, 20 on wood. He's just trying to make as much Yumi as possible. So he keeps poking, he keeps trying, but he can't actually push because, you know, there's a TC, a tower, and I have archers. If he had samurai or horsemen which could eat town center fire and dive onto my archers better, this might be a lot better for him, but he can't. He does keep poking though, just kind of keeping me on my toes. What's also nice about his positioning, and I can't easily go out to these resources over here, but he really should have had a unit like here just on patrol and a unit over here on patrol, so if I tried to leave he would have caught me. But I kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt and assumed he was watching. So he keeps massing. He's going for ram tech. He's getting arrow defense. I try harassing a bit with a couple horsemen. Doesn't really get me anything. But you notice once again, he's not switching comp. He saw I am pure archer. Pure archer. And now I see he's going pure spearman archer. So I'm going to make my own comp switch. And I'm going to add in men-at-arms. Here's the thing. My men-at-arms are super tanky. But if he gets samurai with bannerman and full melee upgrades in feudal, his samurai beat my men-at-arms. Especially because I don't have the golden cuirass. But he keeps dedicating. He's going to go for this ram push, which is Yumi and archers. Two things that both die pretty well to archers and to TCs. My gilded archers will, in a second, do 7 damage a shot and have 125 health and shoot every second. His Yumi do 5 damage and shoot every 1.62 seconds. So and only have 65 health. So my archers are dominating his Yumi. If he had a Yumi bannerman, this might be different, but he never made he's making the bannerman now. So he's also taking a fight without his full advantages. You see, like, he can't push. He can't get near my TCs for that exact reason. And I can just keep playing this archer game with him. If we saw a switch into horseman, if we saw a switch into samurai, this would go a lot differently. He's also not denying my sides here. He finally gets the bannerman in, which is huge for more DPS. And you want to talk about lucky, guys? You want to talk about lucky? Just when he decides to actually rotate left, there are my vills. It is what it is, you know what I mean? But, you know, that happens sometimes. So I pushed back because I saw that all his Yumi were over here. I'm still just chilling. At this point, we're at the 15-minute mark. My TC has more than paid off for itself. I've added farms. I've burned through all my food, but I've added enough farms around Aachen to be okay. My income is good. Because at this point, I do have 57 vills, and he has 46. So remember we said that 12-minute mark is kind of a big deal? He really needed to get at me, or at least make a much stronger comp switch. If these 32 spears were like 16 samurai instead, I think this goes a lot differently for him than how it goes here in a second. I think he saw my horseman running out there. He saw my horseman run around, so he knew they were coming. Here's the thing, since I made that comp switch into men-at-arms, my men-at-arms are going to tank so much damage. So the fight comes in, he has 103 military. I have 81. And it's mostly archers, men-at-arms, and then I have 2 TCs and a tower. Oh, another thing he didn't do. He just got to this deer, he never took boar. So boar would have been huge for his food. Getting on deer faster would have been huge for his food. He's just now going on a secondary berries, but he never really took map resources to really pump his eco. Which he could have been on these this whole time, and I wouldn't really have stopped him. From his perspective, this looks kind of scary. Mercenary pairs, and here comes my units, and watch how my men-at-arms do in this mass. They just tank so much damage. I just kite back to my TC. And his feudal all-in fails because he didn't comp switch. Cool. So that's our time. I have recorded this and I will be posting it tomorrow. So if you want to rewatch it or you have any other questions that come up, please let me know. Any last question in the chat? You defend against his early barracks with a tower on your goal, but in my experience is not the right counterplay because he can still tower rush you even if you get the tower up by placing tower slightly on the edge of your tower's range. Good point. So the only reason I did that, because you're right, I usually wouldn't do the tower on the edge either. The only reason I did was to place with my gold. For him to tower this, he would have had to run all the way around the backside or run all the way over here of his Vil. To prevent that, in Dark Age, I walled this and I walled this while I was dropping the tower. That's the only reason I did it. In other instances, I agree with you, I would have just gathered the gold to age up. And then I would just made spears and archers and fought with spear archer. But that's a really good point to make. It's literally only because of my starting resources and like where everything was situated. It's for sure, yeah, it's a map thing completely. And those are the things where like once you notice them, things get a lot easier for you, right? But like in almost any other sense, I would have just sent a bunch of those with gold, gather what I needed, head back to base. Cool. Any other questions? All right, guys, thanks so much. If you view this as something you potentially would like to do more of, one of my Patreon tiers is just doing these weekly lessons, as well as getting extra content, which would be included in that as well. So if you think that'd be interesting for you, check that out. Or if you just feel like, man, I just want some coaching sessions, you can check that out as well. And I will, for my public coaching Discord, try to every once in a while do one of these, just for everyone who'd be interested in. But thank you so much for stopping by and watching, and good luck on your guys' games.